We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
The Centers for Disease Control confirms the first coronavirus case of unknown origin in the United States.
Nigeria confirms coronavirus case, first in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai, a high-profile critic of Beijing, was arrested for taking part in last year's pro-democracy protest that rocked the city for 7 months. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. A significant and troubling development in the COVID-19 outbreak in Northern California. We now have what appears to be the first person in the United States to catch the virus through what is called community spread. Now that means the person didn't travel to any high-threat region or come into any known contact of someone else who is infected. It means that the coronavirus may be circulating in some places in the country undetected. A public health officer in California gives a press conference and says it is still unknown where the first U.S. case of novel coronavirus was exposed to the virus.
That the CDC has confirmed that a Solano County resident has been identified with coronavirus with no known exposure to a coronavirus positive individual and with no travel history. The implications of that being that this person appears to be a community acquired case of coronavirus, which would be the first here in the United States. It's also worth noting that most respiratory diseases that we experience come with a range of symptoms, from asymptomatic to very severe, and it's very unusual for a respiratory disease not to have some element of transmission from people that are either not showing symptoms or showing very mild symptoms. So this type of spread is not at all unusual and is something that we've been expecting and that we've been planning for. And with regard to the individual in question, this patient, we don't know what their exposure was. So at this point, we don't know where the patient was exposed. We know that the patient became ill, was hospitalized at a local hospital in our county.
Now, President Trump earlier tried to calm fears at a rare White House press conference, insisting the risk here, quote, remains very low. This is despite warnings from the CDC to Americans to begin preparing. Vice President Pence holds a task force briefing on the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus outbreak. President Trump tapped the vice president to lead the task force, which also welcomed new members, including Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow.
As Dr. Fauci and I spoke yesterday, but for the President's decisive action, not only in establishing this task force, but suspending travel to the United States from China, initiating quarantine efforts for American citizens, and declaring a public health emergency, the American people deserve to know we'd be in a very different place today.
The death rate, or what we call the case fatality rate, is about 2%, 2.5%. Whether that's the most accurate, we don't know.
The coronavirus crisis is growing in Asia and Europe. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called Thursday on schools to close nationwide from March 2 for several weeks to prevent the spread of the virus. Nigeria also reported the first new coronavirus case in Sub-Saharan Africa. The virus has proliferated around the globe over the past week, emerging in every continent except Antarctica, prompting many governments and businesses to try to stop people traveling or gathering in crowded places.
Okay.
The World Health Organization declared Thursday that the new coronavirus epidemic was at a decisive point as countries across the globe battled to contain the deadly outbreak. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the situation could still develop into a full-blown pandemic.
But as you know, it's what's happening in the rest of the world that's now our greatest concern. We're at a decisive point. For the past 2 days, the number of new cases reported in the rest of the world has exceeded the number of new cases reported from China. If you act aggressively now, you can contain this virus. You can prevent people getting sick. You can save lives. The epidemics in the Islamic Republic of Iran, Italy, and the Republic of Korea demonstrate what this virus is capable of. But this virus is not influenza. With the right measures, it can be contained. Every country must be ready for its first case, its first cluster, the first evidence of community transmission, and for dealing with sustained community transmission. These are 4 scenarios. And it must be preparing for all of those scenarios at the same time. No country should assume it won't get cases. That could be a fatal mistake, and quite literally. This virus does not respect borders. It does not distinguish between races or ethnicities. It has no regard for a country's GDP or level of development. There are some vital questions that every country must be asking itself today. Are we ready for the first case? What will we do when it arrives, when the first case arrives? Do we have an isolation unit ready to go? Do we have enough medical oxygen, ventilators, and other vital equipment? How will we know if there are cases in other areas of the country? Is there a reporting system that health facilities are all using, and a way to raise an alert if there is a concern? Do our health workers have the training and equipment they need to stay safe? Do our health workers know how to take samples correctly from patients? Do we have the right measures at airports and border crossings to test people who are sick?
World financial markets have plunged on fears that widespread lockdowns could hamper business activity and dent global growth, while sports matches and festivals have been cancelled to try to stem infections. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank are ready to provide countries in need with immediate emergency funding to fight the coronavirus outbreak. The EU said it was bracing for an economic hit, with tourism already feeling the pinch and supply chains reliant on China being affected.
Meanwhile, Brazil's Executive Secretary of the Ministry of Health, João Gabardo dos Reis, explained that 132 existing suspect cases of the new coronavirus have been detected in their country. In addition, 213 suspect cases that have yet to be confirmed have been notified by the states to the federal government. Within 24 hours, the number of suspected cases jumped to 132 from 20, and government authorities said they expect the number to reach 300. The government has already discarded dozens of suspected cases. Brazilian Health Minister Luiz Henrique Mandetta regretted that Brazil's first case of the virus in a 61-year-old businessman who had traveled to Italy was confirmed in Latin America's most populous city.
Suficiente para fazer essa análise mais pormenorizada para poder dizer, ok, o Ministério.
Moscow on Friday announced new restrictions on travel to Russia from Iran with South Korea, two countries hit hardest by the outbreak of the new coronavirus. In a statement, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin announced a temporary suspension of visas for Iranians traveling to Russia for education, employment, tourism, and transit. A separate decree imposed restrictions on travel to Russia from South Korea, with exceptions including members of official delegations. Moscow on Wednesday advised Russians against travel to Italy, Iran, and South Korea amid a spike in infections. On Friday, South Korea reported 315 new cases of the virus, bringing the total to 2,337, including at least 13 dead. Iran said Thursday it had recorded an additional 106 cases, bringing the total in the Islamic Republic to 245, of which 26 had proven fatal. The travel bans announced Friday and follows dramatic steps taken by officials in Moscow to control the spread of the virus in Russia, such as the closure of its 4,250-kilometer shared border with China. 2 infected Chinese citizens have been treated in Russia, which has also repatriated and quarantined 8 passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan, of whom 3 have tested positive.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has also suspended all flights to Iran and closed land borders with its neighbor, according to officials, after Islamabad detected its first 2 coronavirus cases, now both people who had recently traveled to the Islamic Republic. Flights to and from China, the epicenter of the deadly outbreak, and Afghanistan, which also detected its first case this week, were still operating. However, and their land borders with Pakistan were also open. No Pakistani airlines were operating between the 2 countries, meaning the move hits 3 Iranian carriers, Iran Air, Mahan Air, and Taban Air. Pakistan's 2 cases were detected in the capital, Islamabad, and in the teeming port megacity of Karachi in southern Sindh province.
Nigeria's economic hub, Lagos, confirmed a case of new coronavirus on Friday, stirring memories of the fears sparked 6 years ago when West Africa's Ebola epidemic hit the chaotic megacity of 20 million. Health Minister Osaji Ehanire said the first confirmed case of the virus in Sub-Saharan Africa was an Italian citizen who had returned from Milan earlier this week. A low number of cases so far across Africa, which has close economic ties with China, the epicenter of the deadly outbreak, has puzzled health specialists. Prior to the case in Nigeria, there had been just 2 cases on the continent, in Egypt and Algeria. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country with some 190 million people, is viewed as one of the world's most vulnerable to the spread of the virus, given its fragile health system and high population density. The Director General of the West African Health Organization, Stanley Okolo, has insisted the region had learned from the lessons of Ebola.
Meanwhile, Lagos State Governor said the confirmed case of new coronavirus in the megacity of 20 million is stable, as he asked the population not to panic. The patient is the first confirmed case in Sub-Saharan Africa. Let's listen in.
Said that this patient is stable and every health intervention that is required is currently being given, and we can say that we're ready, and we're just hoping that we can very quickly put this behind us. Our people are out there now trying to track every suspected interaction that this patient might have had contact with, and we're ready. Our facility has been fortified to continue, if need be, of any form of tests and containment, if need be. It's because we also don't want people to panic. That's why we're giving all the information as at when we have it. You know, I did not wait till this morning before we pushed out this information within hours, where it was confirmed that the patient is positive. So our disease control center will have capability, like he said, to take in patient, almost 80 patients right now, and we're scaling up, everything that is required in the next couple of days. If there's need be, we will also further scale up, the facility to ensure that we can receive more patients if it gets to that. But we do not. We're hoping that it won't get to that level.
The delay in the first confirmed case in Sub-Saharan Africa appears to have given the region a chance to get better prepared, with more than half of the countries establishing laboratories to diagnose the virus. But the World Health Organization has still called for the continent to come together to be more aggressive in attacking the issue and said, quote, "The biggest concern is outbreaks in countries with fragile health systems." The West Africa region already has the bitter experience of dealing with the devastating Ebola outbreak that killed some 11,000 people from 2013 to 2016.
Two South Africans were contaminated by the new coronavirus while serving as crew members aboard a cruise ship that was quarantined for 3 weeks in Japan, officials said Friday. The pair, the first South Africans confirmed to have the virus, are being cared for in Japan, but they do not show symptoms of the illness linked to COVID-19, South Africa's health ministry said. The government was informed by Tokyo that there were 12 South African crew members working on the Princess Diamond cruise ship when it was hit by COVID-19, and that 2 had tested positive, the ministry said. They are currently being treated in Japan, and the latest reports indicate that they are currently asymptomatic. Until now, no one in South Africa has been officially confirmed to have the virus.
South Korea now reported 315 new coronavirus cases on Friday afternoon, taking its rise on the day to 571 and overtaking the increase reported in China, where the disease first emerged. The South, which has an advanced health system, whose statistics are regarded as reliable by observers, now has 2,337 cases, according to the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on its website. The 571 new cases, the sharpest daily spike yet, outnumbering 327 new cases reported in China earlier in the day, brought the nation's total infections to 2,337, according to the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Only 2 days ago, the number of infections had just exceeded 1,000. So far, 13 people have died in South Korea from the virus that emerged in China. South Korea confirmed its first new coronavirus case from a Chinese woman from Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, on January 20.
Let's head on over to Spain, where Catalonia reported its first case of COVID-19. Here's Lynn Tumbaga-Diaz.
Barcelona is a province in Catalonia region in Spain. Tourism is one of the main sources of income here, and with the spread of the novel coronavirus, major steps were done in order to prevent the spread of this disease. The cancellation of the Mobile World Congress, or MWC, an annual event held here in Barcelona, is one of the major steps to prevent the spread of the disease. But despite of this, health authorities have recently confirmed the case of coronavirus here in Catalonia, Spain. Coronavirus disease has reached here in Catalonia, Spain. The health authorities confirmed the first case here in Catalonia, and the victim is a 36-year-old Italian woman living here in Barcelona. The first COVID-19 patient was confined to the Hospital Clinic Barcelona. A medical protocol was also done to the 25 people that the patient has been in contact with. This means that these people will need to stay at home for 14 days and will be checked by doctors. There was also an additional case just after 24 hours that the patient was said to be a 22-year-old man from Italy. According to Reuters, there are 3 more cases in Spain. One of them is an Italian woman on vacation in Tenerife. The hotel was locked down in Tenerife, where the victim stayed. Check-ins at this hotel were advised to stay and the other 2 cases were with a German in Canary Island, followed by a case with a British in Mallorca. The reported cases of this disease and people under observation for possible infection increases, but the health authorities in Catalonia assured that they are prepared to detect and treat coronavirus. Many residents showed optimism and believe that everything is under control.
Es de las mejores de Europa y creo que aunque tiene un cierto riesgo el virus, no es mucho peor que una gripe común y creo que tenemos que estar tranquilos, aunque por mi parte tengo mi familia, mis padres que tienen ya una cierta edad y podrían ser un target por la edad y por la salud que tienen, pero aún así creo que estamos todos tranquilos y confiados de que esto no va a ir a más.
Now that the authorities confirmed that there are cases of coronavirus here in Catalonia, the most important thing that we should do right now is to remain calm. There is no value in panicking or telling people to be afraid. You know, it is always easier to prepare for a worst case scenario when you are calm. Although we all know about the serious shortage of face masks around the world, but to be honest, we really don't need to buy anything new or special to brace for it. You know, masks don't really necessarily protect you, but they do if you have the disease, and that's to stop you from giving it or passing it to anybody else. Let us all bear in mind that we don't have that many cases in Catalonia. And besides, most people who get the virus, they end up like being just fine. So, you know, panicking won't really help at all. However, we must continue to take precautions like regularly, thoroughly clean our hands with soaps and, you know, alcohol. Also, drink lots of fluids. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth. Maintain at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing, you know. Also, we need to listen to the public health officials' advice. And, you know, most of all is, let us never forget to pray. God lives. He is near. He is real. He is not only aware of us, but cares for us too. He is our Father, and He is accessible to all who will seek Him. You know, so let us not let this fear and emotion drive the response to this virus.
So I think we shouldn't worry too much about the coronavirus, since most of the extreme cases that people died are people that already had a lot of problems, like diseases, heart diseases, these kinds of things. So I think we should not make it bigger than it is, and I'm not really afraid, to be honest.
From Barcelona, Spain, I'm Lynn Bautista Tumbaganies, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Lynn. The Swiss government on Friday said it was suspending all events in the country involving more than 1,000 participants until March 15 in a bid to stop the new coronavirus contagion. Large-scale events involving more than 1,000 people are to be banned. The ban comes into immediate effect and will apply at least until the 15th of March, according to the government in a statement, after the country registered 15 cases. The government said it was aware that this measure will have a significant impact on public life in Switzerland, but added that it should prevent or delay the spread of the disease, thus reducing its momentum. The federal government also said that the scale of the outbreak allowed it to take special powers to order measures that are normally the responsibility of Switzerland's cantons. Health Minister Alain Berset said that similar measures had proved effective in other countries.
Around 1,000 people were in quarantine in Germany's most populous state Friday, as the number of confirmed cases of novel coronavirus in Europe's biggest economy rose above 50. The district of Heinsberg in North Rhine-Westphalia said it had to take the step of keeping around 1,000 home as an infected couple had participated in carnival celebrations in mid-February. Schools and kindergartens were also shut in the district until Monday as the number of cases linked to the cluster reached 20. In Hamburg, parents and children who were in contact with an infected employee at a university clinic have also been ordered to stay home for 14 days, with cases now detected across several further German states, including Hesse, Baden-Württemberg, and Bavaria. Health Minister Jens Spahn said this week that Europe's biggest country was at the beginning of a coronavirus epidemic. The government has ordered local authorities in the country's 16 states to update their pandemic readiness plans.
And Italy is urging tourists spooked by the new coronavirus not to stay away, but efforts to reassure the world it was managing the outbreak were overshadowed by a sharp rise in case numbers. Hotel bookings have slumped, and nearly a dozen cities in the north are in lockdown as the number of infections reached 650 and deaths hit 17, by far the highest in Europe, according to the latest figures from the Civil Protection Agency. The latest toll was a sharp increase from the previous official tally, showing 528 infections and 14 deaths. That was up from 400 cases and 12 fatalities on Wednesday. Explaining the steep rise, Civil Protection Chief Angelo Borelli said Wednesday's figures had not included all the data from the northern Lombardy region, the most badly hit part of the country. 12 regions have reported at least one case of the virus, including Sicily at the country's southern tip. Hotel bookings in the northern city of Milan have plummeted to 20% compared with nearly 90% normally at this time of the year. In Rome, far from the virus hotspots, more than 50% of bookings have been canceled until the end of March, according to Hotel Association Federal Bergi said. The government has stopped all movement in and out of 11 towns and 2 regions in the North Lombardy and Veneto in a bid to stop the contagion from spreading. As alarm grows, Foreign Minister Luigi De Maio condemned false reports circulating abroad about panic in the country, saying they were doing more damage than the virus itself.
The Vatican said Catholic Church's Pope Francis postponed his official appointments Friday and was working from home a day after canceling a scheduled appearance at a Mass because of a mild ailment. Francis, 83, had appeared earlier in the week to be suffering from a cold. He was seen blowing his nose and coughing during the Ash Wednesday service, and his voice sounded hoarse. Chief Press Officer Matteo Bruni said in a statement that he celebrated morning Mass as usual and greeted participants at the end, but cleared his diary of everything apart from meetings at the St. Martha's Guest House at the Vatican where he lives. Bruni had said Thursday that Francis was suffering from a mild ailment. The decision to cancel public appointments for a second day in a row came as Italy grapples with the largest outbreak of the coronavirus in Europe, with some 650 cases and 17 deaths. The Vatican made no reference to the disease in its announcement. Francis has not previously curtailed any of his activities, which often include mingling with crowds and shaking hands. The pontiff, who lost part of a lung as a young man and suffers from sciatica, very rarely skips appointments in his busy schedule.
More updates on COVID-19. Israel denied entry to dozens of foreign nationals who landed on flights from Italy on Thursday as the Jewish state discouraged travel as part of efforts to contain the spread of the new coronavirus. The Interior Ministry had announced travelers from Italy would not be granted entry, adding to a list of barred countries including Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and Singapore, as well as Macau and Hong Kong. 3 flights originating from Italy then landed at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport. The Interior Ministry said 25 foreign nationals, including 19 Italians who landed on the flight from Bergamo, were denied entry and will be flown back. A ministry spokeswoman said another 23 foreigners on an EasyJet flight from Italy were also blocked from entering the Jewish state, has also taken the rare step of discouraging its citizens from traveling abroad. The Health Ministry said travel to conferences and other international congregations should be avoided, including trips to religious events where people from many countries gather. Israel has recorded 3 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 virus, including 2 from the Diamond Princess cruise ship and an Israeli who had been in northern Italy.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said on Friday 2 more Filipinos quarantined at the new Clark City in Tarlac are exhibiting symptoms linked to coronavirus. The 2 Filipinos from the cruise ship, docked in Japan due to numerous coronavirus cases, were brought to the hospital on Friday after complaining of sore throat.
The New Clark City Operations Center reported that 3 male repatriates from the MV Diamond Princess cruise ship quarantined at the New Clark City NCC showed signs and symptoms of respiratory illness on February 26. These repatriates are now categorized as patients under investigation and have been transferred to a referral hospital for isolation. The cases are a 39-year-old who experienced cough and a 34 and 27-year-old who complained of throat discomfort.
The Philippines has only 3 confirmed cases of coronavirus. 2 have recovered while 1 died. There are only 30 patients under investigation. Asked if a patient who has recovered can be reinfected, this is what the Health Secretary said.
Pwede mo bang makuha ulit? Number 1, the COVID-19 is a novel coronavirus. We still don't know much about it in terms of the antibodies that it stimulates to be produced by the individual. There are studies, by and large, about coronaviruses in general, not specifically COVID-19. So yung coronavirus in general, and if I recall the text message to me by RITM Executive Director Celia Carlos, para 8 to 16 months, meron ka antibodies, after which it will...
The Department of Health on Friday reported that patients under investigation admitted in various health facilities for possible coronavirus disease 2019 are now down to 30 from the previous 64.
Today, that there are now only 30 patients under investigation, or PUIs, admitted in various health facilities. A total of 585 patients have already been discharged. To date, 531 PUIs have tested negative for the 2019 novel coronavirus, and 40 cases with pending test results.
All pets of people in Hong Kong infected with the coronavirus will be quarantined, with 1 dog already in isolation. That is according to the city's authorities on Friday. The move is the first reported case anywhere in the world of a government quarantining pets over the outbreak, and was prompted by a positive test in the pet of an infected patient. The canine has been placed in quarantine for 14 days as a precaution, but has no relevant symptoms, according to Hong Kong officials. Nasal and oral cavity samples tested weak positive for COVID-19, a government spokesman said, without explaining why they tested the animal in the first place. He said it was unclear whether the dog had actually contracted the virus or tested positive for low levels due to environmental contamination of the dog's mouth and nose. The animal was collected from the owner's home on Wednesday after the 60-year-old woman was diagnosed with the contagion and placed in a hospital isolation ward. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
When visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRC.
Welcome back. Turkey on Friday rejected Russia's claim that 33 Turkish troops killed by Syrian regime fire in the province of Idlib were among groups of terrorists. Take a look. Russia's defense ministry had said that the Turkish troops were in the battle formation of terrorist groups and had not communicated their presence in the area where they should not have been. But Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said Thursday's strike in the northwestern province took place despite coordination with Russia's officials, adding that the bombardment continued despite warning of the Turkish troops' presence. He said ambulances were also hit. The latest incident has raised further tensions between Ankara and Moscow, whose relationship has been tested by violations of a 2018 deal to prevent a regime offensive on rebel-held Idlib. As part of the agreement, Ankara set up 12 observation posts in the province, but Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces, backed by Russian air power, have pressed on with the devastating assault on Idlib, while Damascus ally Russia accuses rebel backer Turkey for supporting terrorists. Ankara has repeatedly urged Moscow to stop the regime violating the ceasefire. The Turkish military immediately retaliated against regime targets, and Ankara said over 200 regime targets had come under heavy fire from armed drones and other weapons. Ankara claimed over 300 regime elements had been neutralized, while Turkey destroyed dozens of Syrian helicopters, tanks, and howitzers. 32 soldiers were also wounded in Thursday's airstrike.
Greece on Friday boosted border patrols after Turkey said it would no longer prevent refugees from going to Europe. A senior Turkish official said earlier Friday that Ankara would no longer close its border gates to refugees who want to go to Europe shortly after the killing of 33 Turkish soldiers in an airstrike in northern Syria. In addition to the group on the land border, Turkey's private DHA news agency said other migrants have arrived on the coast of Ayvasik in Kanakkale, western Turkey, seeking to go to the Greek island of Lesbos by boats. Turkey hosts some 3.6 million Syrians and made a deal with the EU to step up efforts to halt the flow of refugees, but President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has repeatedly threatened to open the gates. Turkey, which is already home to around 3.6 million Syrian refugees, fears more people arriving in the country where there is growing population discontent against their presence. Greece and its EU partners fear another influx of refugees from Syria after more than 1 million made their way there in 2015 before an EU-Turkey accord was reached on controlling the numbers.
In other news, Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai, a high-profile critic of Beijing, was arrested Friday for taking part in last year's pro-democracy protests that rocked the city for 7 months. The 72-year-old owner of the Apple Daily newspaper is accused of joining a rally on August 31 that had been banned by police for security reasons. Lai was arrested and charged along with veteran pro-democracy activists Lee Cheuk-yan and Young Sam, according to police. The trio could be jailed for up to 5 years if convicted of taking part in an unauthorized assembly, and they're due to appear in court on May 5. Tens of thousands of protesters defied the police ban on the demonstration marking the anniversary of Beijing's rejection of a call for universal suffrage for Hong Kong that sparked the 2014 umbrella movement. Some gathered in the name of a religious procession, which doesn't require police approval, while others claimed they were shopping. In a separate charge, Lai is accused of intimidating a reporter in 2018 during a vigil for the victims of China's bloody Tiananmen crackdown on June 4, 1989. Amnesty International said the legal action against the trio was politically motivated. The rallies and clashes have since died down, partly due to exhaustion and arrests, but also because of the emergence of the deadly new coronavirus. China and Hong Kong leaders have refused to accede to the protesters' demands, which include fully free elections in the city, an inquiry into alleged police misconduct, and amnesty for the nearly 7,000 people arrested during the movement, nearly a third of them under the age of 20.
Canada will no longer pick up the security tab for protecting Prince Harry and his wife Meghan starting in March, the Office of Public Safety Minister Bill Blair said Thursday. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been living part-time in an oceanside mansion in the westernmost British Columbia province since November. Last month, they made a shock exit from life as working royals. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have provided security for the couple in this country under the Internationally Protected Persons Convention. But that will end in the coming weeks, in keeping with their change in status, said a statement. Canadians have been welcoming of the royal runaways. Local monarchists surveyed by AFP are excited, while tourism groups are even giddier about the prospects of a boost from the global attention on the couple. But a recent poll found that 77% of Canadian taxpayers were not keen to pay for their security costs.
At Colombo Sports City, an artificial island the size of central London that is to house one of South Asia's biggest financial centers, work is progressing at a snail's pace. Here's why.
The Geneva International Motor Show, a major event on the auto industry calendar, has been cancelled after Switzerland banned large gatherings amid the new coronavirus epidemic, local authorities said Friday. The Geneva International Motor Show will not take place, Antonio Hodgers, head of the regional cantonal government for Geneva, said on Twitter. The annual show is one of the world's largest automotive events, and last year attracted as many as 600,000 executives and car fans to the city. It was due to take place from the 2nd to 15th of March. Switzerland's Federal Office of Public Health has reported 15 cases of the virus, including in the Geneva, Zurich, and Basel City cantons. Many car makers had already asked employees from infected areas to avoid traveling to the show.
And it appears every leap year on February 29 since 1980, meaning fans of the Le Bouge du Sapeur newspaper can finally get their hands on issue number 11 when it hits the shelves from Thursday. The paper's name, literally The Soldier's Candle, is borrowed from a comic book character, a soldier born in 1896. The soldier was born on February 29 and joined the army on his 4th birthday. This year, 200,000 copies of that paper will go on sale for 4.80 euros a piece. Take a look.
Alors, Jean, ton équipe pour la société. Tiens, avec une belle fille. Et puis, il pique un peu décalé. Très bien. C'est sympa.
Vous pouvez fermer.
Les grandes rubriques sont celles d'un quotidien qu'on retrouve de manière systématique. Vie politique, vie économique, vie internationale, et puis plus vous avancez dans le journal, plus vous avez des sujets plus légers, les spectacles, le sport, et la cerise sur le gâteau pour un journal qui a notre périodicité, nous avons évidemment une page dernière minute.
Oui, c'est vrai, c'est vraiment...
Je suis très voilà. J'aime bien l'illustration qu'ils ont fait pour... J'espère que les gens qui le lisent et qui le retrouvent tous les 4 ans retrouvent comme un bon copain qui les fait marrer pendant un moment.
And finally in our news, K-pop megastars BTS canceled 4 Seoul concerts due in April as the number of novel coronavirus cases in South Korea passed 2,000. Take a look. The seven-piece boy band, currently one of the biggest acts in the world, had scheduled 4 gigs at the capital's Olympic Stadium to promote their new album, Map of the Soul 7. More than 200,000 fans were expected to attend. Their agency, Big Hit Entertainment, said in a statement, with a number of global production companies and a large group of expert international crew also involved. It was impossible at this time to predict the scale of the outbreak, it said, creating so much uncertainty it was unavoidable. The shows were canceled without further delay. The Bts Concerts are the latest events to be canceled or postponed as the outbreak has spread in the world's 12th largest economy. Among affected events are the K-League football season and the World Team Table Tennis Championships, while museums and other public venues have closed.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're one with 25.